Hello and welcome to this Greater Sacramento Electric Car Association General Meeting. Here you can see who the speakers are tonight. Our meetings go roughly for at least an hour, so if you don't want to watch the whole event, just pick out your area of interest. This time we were at the California Automobile Museum, not far from Old Town Sacramento. It has a nice little corner set aside for electric and alternative cars. We had a special pre-meeting activity. A number of our members were giving the museum docents rides in our modern EVs, so the docents could more fully educate the visiting public about these evolving options in vehicles. There was almost every full electric vehicle on the market at this event. Plus, we had some plug-in hybrids. It was a successful docent training day, so they got a full perspective and new experiences. Most of them are volunteers at the museum. The museum also brought out 4 or 5 classic cars from the 1930 to 1950 period to take SacEV members on rides back into automobile history. One of our members came over with his electric bike, which he built himself, ideal for the Sacramento Valley and commuting.
The meeting tonight, 6:15, our first major speaker, who is a senior docent here and an expert on the early history of electric cars, will be giving us a presentation. And I've seen some of his PowerPoint slides. It's going to be shocking because when I look at the current range of electric cars that we now have versus 2011 when I got my first Nissan Leaf and Chevy Volt, there were exactly those two choices. In 1900, there was something like 15 to 20 choices. So we are only reapproaching what existed in the emerging range of electric vehicles at the turn of the last century, much less what will be available to us in literally another 5 to 10 years. And Dave will be talking about those early vehicles. We'll bring up Cal Silcox. Cal, you want to wave? Cal here is going to be sharing with us some of PG&E's plans for supporting EV infrastructure. And then is Suzette in the audience at this stage? There's Suzette right there from SMUD, and she will be sharing with us SMUD events, some incredibly important community events that SMUD is involved in and that certainly we can help support, and some of the newest SMUD incentives. And given a reasonable world, we will adjourn at 7. Yeah, can somebody ask the museum staff if we can get this thing rolled back? Or get 2 strong guys and see if it actually will move? Regen, for sure. I think it was originally like 6 horsepower, but maybe it's running on about 1.5 now. Thank you, man. And let me just acknowledge that this is the Day of the Woman, so it is absolutely appropriate that we respond to this lady's request. Well, okay, announcements. Our next general meeting, mark it in your calendars, May 10th, and we're hoping to have it in Elk Grove. We're going to try to rotate meetings around the region so that they are convenient. Elk Grove Kia has some really exciting new vehicles that they would like to share with us, so hopefully they will pick up the sponsorship and we'll be able to find a location. The dilemma is their dealership doesn't have a meeting room big enough to be convenient, so we're going to have to find a neutral ground, but we've got 2 months to do it. We'll be working on that. Okay, these are some of the events upcoming and that have occurred in the past as part of what SacEV is involved in and what occurs significantly in the next month. Now, April is, we used to have it as an Earth Week. It's become Earth Month. And there's events spread out all over the region throughout the month. Everything from Ecos Days. These are events that we've been at in the past, not necessarily part of the Earth Month, but we need members to show up and show their cars and show their enthusiasm for electric vehicles. How many of you are new to SacEV? Hands up. And again, welcome. We will try to make this a rewarding and educational opportunity. One of the new attendees tonight that I was just chatting to has already remarked to me as I was walking back in that he's learned more about his electric car than he ever, and electric cars in general, than he ever thought existed. When I joined SacEV and got involved, I was blown away with the expertise. And there's people here that are involved in everything from promoting the infrastructure, lobbying, helping to install chargers. Your video person right back there is one of our now retiring board members who has been a yeoman at writing grants and getting chargers installed in Woodland and throughout the area. You know, this has been an inspiring group of people, and we're desperately in need of additional volunteers to be stepping forward on the executive board, because we've had actually now 3.5, really 4 retirements. They're almost burnouts, but I'm trying to avoid that word. So all of these kinds of events, these are the kinds of things we do, where we showed up at the top one at Cal Stirs on a lunch hour break to show the cars and to talk to their employees. This is the kind of activity we're asking you to come forward and help us promote, because nobody knows the benefits and the rewards of driving electric like those of you that are already in the faithful. There we go. And we've got things like shirts even. We've got going on 600 members of SacEV. That's a loose count. You know, all you have to do is sign up on the mailing list and you're a member. We have, as Guy goes on to describe it, a very low bar. But we love every one of you. And, you know, there's opportunities for every level of participation. Yeah.
Does it matter if we do much here? I mean, everything's going to be decided in Washington anyway.
One of the benefits that we have here, and perhaps a significant consolation for me, because I was saying prior to the election that if it went the way it did, I was just going to leave the country. I just got back from Australia, and I was checking out real estate. But the consolation that we all have is we are in California. And we in California are the leaders of the United States in terms of alternative energy and alternative vehicles. And we have a governor who is committed to this kind of action. So if any place in this country can help maintain the momentum and the commitment, it is this setting. So it's this group and groups like this all over the state that will be able to continue in activity. We've got a board member that's taken point on legislative interaction. We have a board member who's a termed out legislator and who has contacts throughout the Assembly, particularly, and the governor's office. We have deep contacts to continue our actions. And, you know, while California doesn't have to secede from the country, we can, in fact, still, with hope, lead. And we have been leaders. CARB has been the leader. We have many members in our group that are part of CARB's administration. And so there's still hope. And that's why I'm still here, because I really weighed coming back. I just got back from Australia on Thursday. Okay, cumulative sales. Well, at least up until recently, the sales on EVs are picking up like mad. One of the big jumps that in the next few months should have a powerful impact is that availability of the Chevrolet Bolt. There's a couple, three of you that'll have the Chevrolet Bolt. Hands up. Lucky, lucky people. Awesome vehicle. And affordable and functional. I mean, the Nissan Leaf that I bought in 2011 cost as much with a functional 73-mile range as the 230-mile range Bolt. I mean, that's real promise. We're getting there. And how many of you have deposits on the Model 3? I mean, the world is changing, and we're all part of it. So worldwide sales, I mean, I don't know if you've seen the statistic. Norway, 38% of vehicle sales were electric last year. I mean, you know, we have 1% in the US. So we've got a long ways to go, but other countries are already moving aggressively. Back to our practical details. Retiring board members. These individuals, Eugen back there, has been our grant writer for infrastructure funding, has been our media person videotaping. Becky has helped stage the ride and drives and was coordinated all of the ride and drives and the vehicles on display at the International Auto Show. Laura has been our staff executive secretary, and she's also one of the co-founders of the NorCal Tesla Club. And Ashley Pearson was a young lady that was helpful in our marketing. Sadly, because of career and personal life changes, they have, in the last couple, 3 months, retired from the board. So we desperately need 3 or 4 new bodies, new energy, new insights to come forward and participate on the board. Please see any of us that are on the board and board members that are here. Can you raise your hands? Peter, Guy, Wayne, okay, are here tonight. See any of them and make your interest known. It's a painless and rewarding operation and procedure. It really won't hurt at all. And the rewards to be able to be involved in actually making decisions, where we meet, what kind of activities we take up, those are, you know, for all of us, have been incredibly appreciated, and we'd like to see more input. Okay, so SacEV needs you. We have at least 2, actually I count right now 3. We have 1 person that has moved up just in the last couple of days. So you can see why I put the Parrott up there, because that's me. Okay. And a reminder to check the SacEV calendar. Guy lives and dies by the calendar, and I try to avoid it as much as I can, but he keeps reminding me to check these things, so I have to share that with you. We really do try to keep the calendar up to date as to events that are upcoming and accurate details, so please take a look at that and see if you will be available. And here's a whole list of imminent events starting this Saturday. And again, just kind of take a look at that. They'll be up on the calendar. The Saturday event is something that several of us participated in last year, and it was so enjoyable for sure that everybody that went last year will go again, and a few more. So again, Lodi High School, it's a science program that they're promoting the technology of electric cars as part of their overall science education. So I want to introduce David Frank of the museum staff and he is our first speaker.
So, thank you, those of you who came out to let the docents and staff drive your electric cars. There is, of course, some pushback among our members, our car people, against electric cars. The common joke is, let them drive an electric car and they'll drive it in the river. But people here are able to see and drive electric cars really makes an impact, and then makes an impact on people that we guide through the museum, that we talk to every day. I know we had an event here several years ago, and after being able to drive somebody's Leaf and a Tesla, I went out and bought a couple plug-in hybrids. I mean, it does have an impact. So thank you for letting me drive your car. It's especially fun driving the Teslas. And someone here was going to let me borrow their Tesla for my vacation next week? Oh, okay, well, all right. All right, about electric cars. Understand the times. Another parallel between what you were saying about all the electric car makes that were out there and what's happening now is, with every technology, besides the technology, there is the adaptation, the people adopting the technology, whether it's cars or computers. And in a big scale, in a big scene of cars in general, it was electric cars that got people really moving toward adopting automobiles. Looking at the history, understand, you know, the Industrial Revolution that we all know a bit about. In the 1830s, we had the first successful battery, although it was non-chargeable. In the 1860s, a rechargeable battery was invented. In the 1880s or so, it was perfected. And very quickly thereafter, like 1885, people were actually building electric cars. And by the turn of the century, you had electric cars on the streets, very common sight in every country, in every major city. You had electric cars. And in the early days of cars, in say 1910, it was only a small percentage of cars that were gasoline. Next you had electric, and then you had steam. So, you know, picture it from there. I mean, it was a matter of electric cars. You could just get in and turn on, they drove. You weren't concerned about range because you were driving around the city, so that wasn't so big a deal. But as roads got longer and cars got quieter and electric starters came along, of course, gasoline cars became more popular. But here you can see, you know, an example of the cars that were available. And they were a lot more expensive, as you can see, than a gasoline car. You know, these cars cost less than $1,600. Your Fords could be bought back then for $300 to $400. So there's a huge difference in cost, and a lot of that cost was the cost of the batteries. Here you had another group of cars, and what's ringing? And in every city, Chicago, Detroit, every major city, you had a manufacturer of electric cars. There was maybe 25 major brands in the U.S. alone. And then every manufacturer had different models, you know, from 2 passengers, 4 passengers, enclosed. It was a popular time. Again, though, they were expensive, you know, $1,650 for what was basically a wagon with an electric motor. And that was even a wealthy person's good part of their annual income at the time. And there weren't any bargains to be had. They were all expensive. You see, they keep going up and up, $1,700. But because it was easy to get people to adapt to cars, with electric cars, you begin to actually find a use for them. You don't automatically build a vehicle, a car, and say, okay, now everyone can start going to the store and using a car. People had to think of a reason for them, just like you would with computers. And you had lots and lots of choices. The choices were really based more on where you lived and where the car was manufactured. But look at this, $2,000 for a baker. And if you look at this car here, you can see that they used a lot of imagination in the way that they designed and were built. This one you can drive from the front, facing back toward your passengers, if you like, or even the back facing forward, you know, with a tiller. You weren't driving very fast, so it wasn't like a real matter of coordination and vision. But the cars, of course, were limited in the city. You had a range of 10 miles was just fine for a day's driving or 2 days driving. And cities like New York and other big cities really wanted to promote electric taxis. Electric taxis were probably the first thing to take off, because have you ever thought about what New York City might have smelled like before the advent of the automobile? Horses got you around. It was an established thing. When your horses died in its traces, it dropped right there, and there were people who would come around and clean up the remains of your horse. It was going to smell pretty bad before then. You had horse manure. The city was a choking, stinking place to be. So when the automobile, electric cars came along and taxi companies can look at it, suddenly they didn't have to feed a horse. These were expensive, but they could get a lot of fares in. And the taxi cabs in the big cities were the early adopters. But by 1920, the day of the electric car was just about over for the masses, for the numbers, although there were electric cars being built into the 30s for specialized uses. And then big trucks took on, and there were electric trucks being driven by like big newspaper companies until the 1950s even. So I hope that gives you some idea of what electric cars were like and what kind of choices you had back in the day if you had the money to spend it. And as you can see, some look more like cars, an actual automobile. Some were just basically coaches without horses. You know, whatever you could imagine. So I give you an idea of early days electric cars. Any questions?
What was the grid like?
What was the what?
The grid for charging.
Well, in the cities, you had places where you could charge. In the outlying areas, of course, you didn't have a grid. There was no electricity, which is one reason why when electric starters were invented in 1917, they didn't catch on in a big way, because you had to be in the city to be able to charge your batteries. There weren't charging systems in early cars. That took a while. They ran on magnetos. And some of the big truck companies that ran electric trucks, there were several companies that did what we thought about doing now, where you bought the car without the batteries and you leased the batteries for a certain number of miles. So you went by with your truck and swapped out the batteries and continued with your day, and you didn't buy the batteries, you just paid for the time. And yes, you're right, there wasn't much. Excuse me?
Was it AC voltage or in the cities, or was it DC?
No, it was DC to begin with. And I don't know about here, but like in England, every city might have half a dozen competing systems, and each of those had a different voltage, and they had different plugs and different lights.
Walking all over again, so they can actually hear you.
They couldn't hear?
It's hard to hear. Try talking in that now.
Does this work?
Yep.
So, any other questions? Yes.
What was the source of the fuel in the steam cars?
The steam cars could be run on a number of things, anything from kerosene. You know, there weren't big distribution of kerosene, of petroleum products back then. So it might be kerosene, it might be white gas, which is a very low octane gas. Primarily what it might be. Steam cars were great. They were the fastest things out there, but they were complex. They took a long time to warm up, and they blew up occasionally. Rather problematic situation. Other questions? Yes. I don't remember seeing it. They offered everything else, including houses. Did Sears offer an electric car in their catalogs? Now, they sold cars later on. I haven't seen any evidence of an electric car offered by Sears. Yes. They did. Interesting. Like they did with Kaiser and other brands. Cool. He says that Sears did offer the car. It was a rebranded Detroit. That's what it was. Yes?
Was there any hydrogen considered at that time?
Was there any what?
Hydrogen.
Oh, well, no, not back then. Question? Yes?
So some of those cars were like $1,000, $1,600 in like 1910?
In 1900, they were like $1,600 and more.
Can you give us a sense of what that would be in 2017 dollars? 20.
Yeah, well, the better way is to consider what else you could buy for it, or how much you would make in a year. Many working people made what, $500 or $600 a year? Maybe. Yeah. And of course, in your farms, you didn't really have a whole lot of cash income. Other questions? Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about that car there?
Well, this is a Detroit Electric. It was typical of cars of its time. And like other car manufacturers, they made their own charging stand for it, or charging mechanism for it, that you had to purchase as well. You were typically driving at speeds under 10 miles an hour, a little bit faster than horses. If you would like to come up, if we have a couple of minutes, and I'll open the door, you can take a look inside. Does anyone want to do that?
We can do that afterwards.
Okay. All right, any other questions? Yes. I'm not sure what the range of this one would be, but they typically were between 10 and maybe 15 miles. Yes? This was what? I hear figures like 80 miles. Okay. But in actual practice, you know, what you're reading about how people are able to use them, I've never read that people were able to drive them 80 miles. That would be a whole week's driving. And no one certainly ever took one of these on a highway and tried to go anywhere. Yeah. Right. Mm-hmm.
And the batteries are lead acid?
Lead acid, yeah. The cars in these times, of course, were lead acid batteries, which were something new. And it wasn't until 1970 the lithium-ion batteries were invented, but of course they weren't put into place until years later. And the first electric cars, as you know, were NiCad batteries until we moved on to lithium-ion. So, but it is interesting that the National Museum in Reno has an electric car similar, you know, the time and everything of this, and had been sitting somewhere in a barn forever. And they hooked up the charging system that came with it to the batteries, and it works still in limited range, but they were able to drive it around the parking lot. Other questions?
What year was that built?
This one?
Yeah.
1914? Yes.
At that time, you had two choices of batteries. You had the lead acid, and then you had the Edison batteries that were a little bit better.
What was the difference in the technology?
I don't know. I just know that they were different in that they were the capacity.
But all the trucking companies, cab companies, you know, the majority of the cars were using the lead acid batteries, and they're still very much like, well, they're more like the batteries were 10 years ago when they were still open.
Well, you
Vintage. Right, and the batteries are already expensive. The typical cost, like I said, of batteries was said to be about 3 times the cost of what you could buy a gasoline car for on its own.
Thanks, everybody. Hi, I'm Cal Silcox, and I apologize, my voice is a little off. I'm recovering from a cold, but thank you for having me out here. I've met with a couple of the EV associations around our service territory, and it's always great. This is by far the largest group I've been to, so SacEV, you guys are doing awesome. I want to talk a little bit about some of the activities that PG&E has going on around EVs. How many folks here are PG&E customers? I know a lot. Wow, actually more than I expected. Those of you who are SMUD customers, go ahead and tune me out for a few minutes and then you can pay. No, it's good to know about what's going on because the utilities in California are very involved in supporting widespread EV adoption, and I think we have a big role to play. So one confession, I don't own an EV. I actually don't have a car. I ride a bike around San Francisco and take transit, but I did drive a C-Max plug-in here today, so I'm a convert. So the 3 things I wanted to talk about are sort of rates and rebates, sort of financial incentives we have available to PG&E customers. Infrastructure, that's probably one of the biggest ways that we're supporting the market right now. And then pilots and research, how we're sort of building towards a cleaner transportation future. So the first thing, the clean fuel rebate, another little poll. Who here has applied for the clean fuel rebate online? Only a few of you. All right. So for those of you who raised your hands and said you were PG&E customers, if you also own an EV, this is $500 free that you should take advantage of as soon as you get home. Essentially, it's a rebate funded by the ARB's low carbon fuel standard, which is sort of like a cap and trade type program, but for fuels. And I brought some little pamphlets to hand. I can put maybe on the table afterwards that have more information. But essentially, PG&E generates credits in this program as a seller of low carbon fuels, primarily electricity, but also natural gas. And we then sell those credits to companies that produce high carbon fuels, so gas refineries and diesel companies. We take the value of selling those credits and give them back to customers in the form of this $500 rebate. So it's pretty easy to apply. You go online to pg.com. It's very similar to the state's clean vehicle rebate. You just submit some registration data, the VIN number for the car. You can only claim it once per car. So if you happen to have bought a used Leaf, for example, in the past 3 months or maybe 2 months, there's a chance that the previous owner applied. But generally speaking, this just launched in January, so most cars probably haven't had the rebate claimed yet. Yeah, and it's available for purchases and leases as well. So be sure to go do that. It's really a no-brainer. We've done very little marketing of this program because we wanted to sort of soft launch, make sure we could process the rebates. And we got 22,000 applications in the first month or so that it's been up, which sort of surprised us, but I guess it's not surprising when you're giving away $500. So definitely take advantage of that. The next thing is EV rates. For those of you who are customers, does anybody know if they've signed up for the EV rate? Anybody? One? A few? Okay, good. So this is just another way that we're trying to make EV ownership attractive financially for drivers. It's not for everybody. There's a lot of customers like myself who probably wouldn't benefit from being on the EV rate and are better off on just a standard time of use rate or maybe our default sort of tiered rate. But what this rate does is it creates a very low off-peak electricity price. So from 11 p.m. until 7 a.m., the price of electricity is about 12 cents per kilowatt hour. When you compare that to gasoline, sort of with the efficiency of vehicles, that's equivalent to about $1.20 per gallon of gasoline. So much cheaper. You can ensure that you're saving money. I won't get into the specifics of rate design because that's not a very fun topic, but as a result, you can see the peak period here is actually much higher than our other rates. So it's a little bit of a trade-off, and you have to manage that. So if you're somebody who's home a lot in the afternoon, maybe runs an air conditioning a lot in the middle of the day, this rate may not be the best for you. If you're able to shift your load a little bit into the evening or earlier in the morning, it can be a very good option. We generally find that customers who are higher energy users on the higher end of the spectrum tend to benefit from this rate because it's non-tiered. This is A. They both have basically the same structure and the same prices. The difference between EVA and EVB is with EVB you have to install a second meter that's just for your EV charging, and that does come with some cost to you to install a second meter. So we don't find that many customers do that. Okay. Yeah. So, but they both have more or less the same structure and same prices for the periods. And you can see that's also much cheaper in the winter. That's just sort of a standard utility rate practice. The last thing I'll say is, regardless of what rate you're on, our rates do change fairly frequently. In fact, just this March, we went through a big rate change on sort of residential rate design. And it's always good, occasionally, maybe once a year, to go to our website, log in, and use the rate analysis. It takes your energy usage history data and models it out and tells you what the best rate to be on is. So now I'll switch to talk a little bit more about infrastructure. I'm going to grab a sip of water, though. So this is our EV charge network, which is a new program. This is probably what we're most excited about working on right now at PG&E. We proposed this program about 2 years ago to the CPUC as a new way that utilities could support the EV market by helping build out level 2 charging infrastructure. We actually asked to also build DC fast charging, but that was not approved. What was approved was this program, which will be 3 years. We have $130 million, and we're looking to install about 7,500 level 2 charging ports. You can see that translates to about 500 to 750 sites. So if you do the math, we're looking to put in about 10 to 20 chargers at these sites. The target audiences are really twofold: multi-unit dwellings, so larger apartment and condo buildings, as well as workplaces. In a perfect world, we'd sort of split it 50-50 between those, but we're really going to wait and see what the demand looks like. So what the program does essentially, PG&E a site that's interested can apply. PG&E will come in and build the electrical infrastructure up to basically the stub out where you would install the charger. We call that the make ready. Basically all of the utility side upgrades, a new meter set, so it would be separate from the existing utility service, put in a new panel, and then all of the trenching and wiring to get power essentially to those parking spaces. And then the site would have a choice to either buy their own chargers and install them on the site, and we would provide a rebate, or in some cases they're also allowed to let PG&E own the chargers. If they don't want to have to deal with it, if they don't want to pay the network fees or deal with maintenance, PG&E can own them and basically cover that through this program. So a good option, allows a lot of choice to workplaces or apartment owners or dwellers. If you're a business owner who's interested in this, or you are an employee of a business that you think would be interested in partaking, or live in an apartment, please talk to your HOA, talk to your HR or facilities department. We set up a little interest list online. You can go to this website, pge.com/evcharge, and fill out the information. Maybe don't, if you're not the facilities manager, don't do it on their behalf, but talk to them about it. But I can't stop you from doing that if you wanted to. But we're getting the program started this year. We're probably going to do about 5 to 10 trial sites this year, and then really expand it into 2018 through 2020. we really hope this is going to make a pretty significant impact on the charging infrastructure. I think by my last count, there's somewhere around 5,000 to 10,000. It's sort of hard to count level 2 commercial chargers in our service territory. So this is really going to make a big impact.
Are you going to do much in the foothills?
We're looking to really cover our entire service territory. If there's demand for charging there, we want to put the chargers where they'll be used. So yeah, I think we're going to evaluate sites on a number of different criteria like cost. We have some commitments to put chargers in disadvantaged communities. So those may get a little bump up in the evaluation, and then usage are probably the 3 primary things. So if there's demand there, we'll put chargers in. The next thing is a new proposal that we just put into the Public Utilities Commission. So these are a little bit down the road. We've got some regulatory decisions to work through, which can take a year to 2 years, but they're similar to what I just described in that they're very much focused on infrastructure. But the difference is that now we're looking to move into medium, heavy duty, and off-road applications. So we've got this program that's focused on light duty passenger vehicles. Now we're looking to really support the other vehicle markets and really try and help those markets commercialize, because there's some good new products, especially in transit. I don't know if you've seen the electric transit buses that are starting to run around California, but really interesting new vehicle technologies. So we proposed about $210 or so million for the medium and heavy duty market, another 20-ish million for fast charging plazas. Both of these similarly, this make-ready infrastructure concept where we'll bring the power in. We found that that's really the biggest cost of installing charging infrastructure is the cost of getting power to the space. And then we'll let the site put their own chargers. For medium and heavy duty fleets, that's generally the chargers come with the vehicle. With the fast chargers, we're hoping to support a lot of the state grants that are going in to this space. And then we also proposed a number of what are called priority review projects that hopefully we'll be able to get moving a little bit faster through the regulatory review process. And that's a bucket of about $20 million to fund some demonstration projects. One is likely going to be in the transit space, one for school buses where we'll be doing some sort of dynamic charging to try and increase the usage of renewables in vehicle charging. Some idle reduction, so looking at truck stop electrification and truck refrigeration. And then, the last thing that would likely be interesting to this group is we want to also build a tool set online to help people through the process of installing a home charger. So identifying, do I need a level 1 or should I upgrade to a level 2 charger? What types of products are on the market, and where can I find an electrician who's nearby who has some experience in installing charging in residential situations. So a handful of sort of interesting little pilots that we hope to launch likely late this year or early next year if they get approved. The last thing, and let me just check on time. How much time do I have? Anybody? Not much? Okay. So we have a number of pilots that we've been working on in partnership, one with UC Davis on DC fast charging, a great one with BMW on smart charging, and one we've actually just proposed where we're hoping to partner with a ride-sharing company like Lyft on DC fast charging and how we might manage the load of electric vehicles that are doing ride sharing. So feel free to come up and talk to me afterwards if you have more questions on this. If I'm out of time, maybe I can take 1 or 2 questions if folks have them. Anything? Yeah?
The fast charging that you're going to be doing, is that the new generation that's coming online, starting to come online, or is there enough power to feed those?
Oh yeah, yeah. So Yeah, so the question was, is there enough power generation to feed the sort of fast charging that's coming online? That's not, I don't think, going to be an issue. Fast charging is usually, 50 to 150, maybe pushing up to 300 kilowatts.
The next generation is 300 to 400.
Oh yeah. So 400 kilowatts. The grid as a whole, our peak today was probably somewhere around 25 to 30,000 megawatts. So there's definitely capacity. We've got a lot of solar on the grid today. So now even more so in the middle of the day, there's a ton of clean energy going on the grid. So I don't think that's a problem. With fast charging, there may be some issues locally where we might have to upgrade transformers or distribution lines, but that's sort of our core business, and anytime new chargers come in, we take care of that if it's needed.
Are these going to require a three-phase for your DC fast charging?
Yeah, the question was, does it require three-phase power? Yeah, as far as I've seen, all the fast chargers being installed are 480 volt three-phase power. Yeah.
My understanding is with the clauses that you're not going to own the equipment, someone else is going to own and operate it.
Right.
I know you don't want to get into rate design, but demand charges is a 6 DC fast charge. How are you guys going to address that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the question was with fast charging, especially demand charges, which are a part of our commercial rates. You, as a residential customer, you probably aren't familiar with them. A lot of people aren't familiar with them, but demand charges are parts of our commercial rates based on the peak power that you consume, can sort of mess with the economics of fast charging. That's a great point. We've been struggling with that a lot recently. We're starting to look at how we can design rates specifically for commercial EV purposes. The big issue is that we're trying to avoid essentially subsidizing EV charging by pushing those costs onto other customers' rates. So you're shaking your head.
That's the whole point of SB 350. I'm not against it, but that's exactly what you're doing, which is good.
Yeah. All right. So let's just chat afterwards. Yeah. Great. Well, thank you guys.
My name is Suzette Bienvenue, and I work for the Energy Education and Technology Center at SMUD. And my primary function for that department is to educate K through U. So I support teachers and students all the way from kindergarten through the local universities and primarily renewable energy. And I do a lot with EVs because that's one of my passions aside from working for SMUD. As Guy mentioned, I'm a proud EV owner. I started with a Spark. I'm now at a Kia Soul, and I'm working my way up to a Tesla. So, my daughter works at Tesla, so I'm hoping to make use of the friends and family discount one day. So I'm just going to talk quickly about some of our education opportunities and some of the SMUD incentives that we have going. All right, what did I just do, Guy? Oh, there we go. Okay, so one of our incentives is charge free for 2 years. So as a new EV owner, you go online, fill out a very simple form, and you have two choices. You can apply for a $600 check, and that's kind of what we roughly estimate it would cost to charge for 2 years, or you can get a Clipper Creek rugged charger, and that's valued at about $650, $700. So you have two choices, take the money or the charger. Really good program, very easy to apply for. Time of use rate. If you sign up for this rate, we give you, I think, a 1.5 cent discount when you charge between 12 and 6 a.m. And that equates to, I think, about 7 cents a kilowatt hour. Again, as my PG&E mentioned, it may not be good for everyone, so talk to one of our energy advisors and see if that's a rate that's good for you. We've got lots of cool things. We've got a grant coming in. So if you, for example, live in an apartment, talk to our research and development department. We've got some money that we can start spending and putting in charges in multi-family units. And this may not apply to anyone here, but I think it's a really cool program. And we have a special incentive program for SMUD employees. And basically, you can get a brand new Leaf for about $9,000 or $10,000. So yeah, so if you have a neighbor, friend, it's amazing how people at SMUD don't hear about what SMUD can do for you, but we have 2,500 employees. So it's a great program. You know, that's a good question. Don't know. I don't know if they're available. But it's a great program. It's through Nissan USA, through their corporate office, the local Nissan dealerships, SMUD rebates, as well, of course, the California and federal tax incentives. So, yeah, I'm really proud that we're offering our SMUD employees an opportunity to experience what it's like to drive an EV. Okay, so on to some of the programs that I sponsor, and you know, Guy, George, all you guys have been great at coming out to my events and helping young people who will soon be drivers and purchasing their cars, helping them learn about electric vehicles. So the next event we have coming up is going to be at Consumnes River College on April 19th, and it's a solar car race. So it's quite apropos to have SacEV out there, and this year we have 320 students competing. The cars are driven by a 9-volt solar panel, and it's their own design. Some are very elaborate and some are made out of cardboard, but we have lots of fun there that day. So if you'd like to come out, that's April 19th, and the event runs from 10 until 2. We have an educational event coming, and this is going to be at SMUD in the Rubicon Room, and it's a panel discussion. Is an EV right for you? So if you know people who are sitting on the fence, who really don't have a lot of information, they're considering purchasing an EV, this is a great time to come out, hear from owners, dealerships, and do a ride and drive. It's a great event for that too. Electricity Fair, it's held at the historic Folsom Parrott House in Folsom. You haven't been out there, this is a great museum, a great site that's actually run by the California State Parks. It celebrates the very first powerhouse on the West Coast that delivered power from Folsom 31 miles down to downtown Sacramento to support the electric streetlights and local breweries. So it's a great way to celebrate electricity, to talk about all things electric. It's a family fun day, great activities for the kids, arts and crafts, a lot of electric activities, tours of the museum, tours of the hiking trail, and of course tours of the historic Folsom Powerhouse. So that's going to be September 9th. And I think those are all the major events. Of course, we have other events that we support as well. If you'd like more information on electric vehicles, to find the form to fill out to get your rebate, it's smud.org/drive-electric, and there's my contact information. So any questions? Yes, Dave?
Is it going to rain at the solar races this year?
Oh God, I hope not. Because we're trying something new this year. We're not racing on asphalt, we're racing on a plywood track. Because asphalt's a little bumpy at Consumnes River College, so it's going to be a whole new experience. So yeah, I'm hoping it won't rain. The cars actually still work even in the rain, as you saw last year. They just go very slowly. That's what's great about solar. It works as long as there's light. Any other questions? All right, well, if you want to come by and see me, I've got some cool stuff to give away. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Suzette.
Oh, you're welcome.
I guess I gotta hold this.
Is that everything off?
Yeah, I think so. All right. Oh, all right. I'll just hold it and do it this way. All right. So I think that's it. There is one last item. I think. I don't know if I could figure out how to work this thing. There we go. Okay. So the next general meeting is May 10th, and we don't know where it is yet, but it's going to be in the Elk Grove area, as George announced earlier. We should have some displays or vehicles from Kia, and hope to see you all there. Thank you.